All right, in this video, I want to write a literature review based on a topic that I have already written a literature review on, but this time I want to use generative AI because I'm curious what it does well and what it does poorly, so I can compare what happens when a human intelligence pursues a literature review and the problems that I ran into or that humans may run into, and then compare that to the generative AI version. I expect this to be faster and perhaps more frustrating. The one that I've already written, I've got a couple of videos on where I actually walk through the process of how I think about writing a literature review. That took, I don't remember exactly, maybe 2 hours total, including all the background reading and pulling out quotes and then writing up the manuscript. And the manuscript was like maybe 1,500 to 2,000 words. But this I'm going to do using generative AI. Now, I think ChatGPT would be the best, but I don't have, I don't know how licensing works. And I do have a subscription to CoPilot through Microsoft as a college professor at a university that has this whole Microsoft Office suite. So I'm going to use that, but keeping in mind that I don't think it works as well. So that's a caveat that we'll start off right away. So let me show the goals here. So I've got a rubric that I created for an advanced undergraduate research class, and it's got 4 areas. And this rubric, again, is designed to limit the kind of outsourcing of everything to AI, like write me a literature review and then submit it. Because it goes through each of the steps of the process, the steps that I think are most important. So I'm actually going to use CoPilot to take me through all of these steps. So the first one is brainstorming a topic. The next is collecting information and resources, synthesizing ideas with resources, kind of making an outline, and then writing the actual manuscript. So that's just worth, 25% of the whole project grade. So brainstorm topic. If you recall, my topic on for the last lit review was, we'll say, student-driven assessment of general education outcomes. So this is based on my role as Gen Ed coordinator at Albany State University, and I want to know how I could design an assessment that features students. So not like how students perform, but what they're interested in, what they enjoy, what they want to see, like kind of their perspective. So let me pull up CoPilot here. It knows an article or a email that I just sent, and so it's making a suggestion. So help me brainstorm a literature review about general education assessment from a student's perspective. Meanwhile, while that's doing it, I'm going to start taking notes. All right, this could be a very publishable angle because most Gen Ed is written from the perspective of faculty, administrators, and accreditors. Oh, CoPilot is congratulating me for my topic. So it's given me a possible title, my research question, how do students perceive, experience, and respond to general education assessment processes and outcomes in higher education? My first observation is that CoPilot understood my question. When I was searching Google and all the AI responses I got in the form of like websites to search, they all misunderstood what I was asking. It was like student performance in Gen Ed. And so again, it was very faculty driven, administrator driven, but CoPilot understood my question. I honestly was expecting to have to change my topic because it would suck so bad, but this is pretty good. So let's see. It understood my question. It is suggested the research question be, how do students perceive, experience, and respond to gen ed assessment processes and outcomes in higher education? Not crazy about the research question. So that's like asking students, how do you feel about the assessment of gen ed, not gen ed in general? So stupid research question, CoPilot. However, let's see, potential themes for my lit review, broad knowledge acquisition. Let's see, purpose of gen ed, what's the goal? The student perspective question. So this again is brainstorming topics. So I'm just going to copy all of it. We're going to dump it into my notes. Wow. Gave me, I think, 5 topics and a proposed structure. No, and it didn't let me highlight it. And so what I'm going to do is give my feedback essentially on what CoPilot said. So I'm going to say my feedback is in red. That way I'm letting my professor know that I didn't just accept everything it spit out. I actually read it and considered it. All right, so I've already mentioned that I thought this is a stupid question. Purpose of gen ed. I honestly don't think students care about the overarching purpose of gen ed. But if I did think they cared, then I would ask them directly, why do you think gen ed is important? What should it focus on? Notice I am critiquing what CoPilot created, but it got me started on this. I really didn't even know what direction to head in, and it started coming up with, here's what you might want to do, and I was like, I don't like that, but it makes me think about some other ideas. So it has gotten me to think through what my purpose, what my goals are here. So I have 2 possible questions if I wanted to pursue this kind of as a study. So student perspective questions. Many studies suggest students view gen ed as obstacles unrelated to career goals, classes I have to take, and these would make interesting interview questions. Hey, I've heard it said that students think that gen ed is nothing but an obstacle to graduation. Care to comment on that? Student understanding of learning outcomes. I think this would be interesting from a gen ed assessment committee. In other words, do students really understand what it is they're supposed to be learning and why, how it's being assessed? Many institutions assess critical thinking, blah, 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 but students may not recognize these as the intentions. Okay. How valuable do students perceive it to be? Student engagement and assessment. Oh, student engagement and assessment. This is particularly strong angle if you draw on self-determination theory, an area reflected in several of your own research resources. I've written a book about self-determination theory, and they're recognizing that I've shared a lot of these articles with colleagues. That's interesting. Cool. Thanks, CoPilot, for I feel seen. Supported by, okay. Students as partners. There we go. This is one of the newest and most interesting directions. This is what I wanted. Recent scholarship argues that students should not merely be subjects of assessment, but active participants in designing. Yes, this is what I want. So I'm actually going to highlight it and ask it to write me a lit review focused on it. Equity and inclusion, important topic, not one I want to focus on. Student agency and voice. I've got what I want, so I'm actually going to highlight it. This is what I chose. Go back to CoPilot. Help me find 6 peer-reviewed resources on this suggested topic. So I'm essentially telling it which one I liked. I'm going to cut all this out because I didn't use it. Now, if I was doing this for me as a professor, I would want a little bit more written about this thought process, but I'm like recording it, so maybe I could just submit that recording. So I explained what I liked about what CoPilot did and what I didn't like, and some of my feedback, and where I ended up going, what I decided. And I asked, let me find 6 peer review. Okay. For lit review on students as partners in gen ed assessment, I would recommend using a mix of foundational and contemporary peer-reviewed sources. The goal is to demonstrate that assessment has evolved from something done to students. CoPilot gave me the following suggestion. Design your lit review around how gen ed assessment has changed from something done to students to something done with students. And choose resources that reflect these changes. So they've given me one. All right, so they give me resources and explain why. So Carpenter, Burgess, I don't know that one. Engaging students as partners. Okay, so just a comment. This isn't an APA format. It looks like it's a book, but it says it's from the Journal of General Education. And so the title should not be italicized. The journal should be italicized. So I wouldn't just want to copy that. This article is directly on your topic. The authors describe a student assessment and research advisory committee created within Gen Ed program at Portland State. I happen to know Portland State. I think psx.edu is the cool URL it uses. Students helped interpret assessment findings. Yes, I want that article. That's perfect. But let's see what else they offer. Twombly, 1992. So this is one of the older historical documents. Student perspectives on Gen Ed. Oh, wow. So this happened like 35 years ago. Cook-Sather, I actually quoted in my previous lit review, so that's interesting. Students as co-creators of teaching approaches, course design, and curricula. Okay. So participating more in the development of Gen Ed as a curriculum. Flint Harrington. Engagement through partnership. Students as partners in learning and teaching. Okay. Just not exactly Gen Ed, but students can participate in the development of courses and curriculum. Students as partners, literature. Okay. All right, suggested organization. Can you provide me PDFs of these suggestions? So going back to the rubric, I'm asking students to actually find and engage with PDFs, not ask a generative AI program to engage on my behalf. So it's the process of actually interacting with and reading and gleaning and pulling information from them. So I can't provide or redistribute copyrighted PDF copies of journal articles. Okay. So these are just links to JSTOR, which are online repositories, which I may or may not have access to. So I'm going to copy and search for them online. I don't want to show too much of that email. So I'm doing the title of the article and then writing PDF afterwards. All right, so I hate these because I can never tell if there's a motorcycle in these blurry frickin' pictures. That might be a motorcycle or just like a pedestrian. I passed. Okay, I don't have access to it. I need to log into your school library. Okay, it remembered me. Okay, I want the title. Let's see if it will find it for me. All right, same kind of roadblock. I don't have access to this article, which is too bad because it's really good. I'm going to try one more thing. I guess go back to searching for the article. I don't know what Scholarly Publishing Collective is. Maybe it has a copy. It says it allows PDF downloads. And I need an account. You know what? I actually just submitted an article for publication here, so I may have to reach out to the editor to get a copy. But students generally don't have that kind of access, so that's not going to work. Let me go back to CoPilot. I'm going to have to find these articles some other way, so I am unable to do this column or this row of my lit review rubric. So if I just copied the information, I would have references, screenshots, or photographs included along with detailed rationale for selecting them. CoPilot gave me that rationale. So I wouldn't get the full points, but I'd get 2/3 of the points for that one. Now, synthesizing the ideas with resources. I can't mark up PDFs, but I could produce an outline or rough draft, which it gave me already. So let me go back to this outline. So suggested lit review organization. Theme 1, why student voices matter. Yeah. Will you write me a lit review based on your suggested organization? A graduate level lit review. All right, so the lit review it gave me was 1,200 words. The one that I wrote was 1,500 words, so this is a little bit shorter. Mine, I think, had 7 or 8 citations that came up came about kind of organically. I think these are better citations. However, these aren't actually done with APA formatting, so I would have to change those. Let's see how well it did. Students as partners, intro, gen ed programs. I'm recognizing kind of a general writing style, which there's no voice. It's just information that's been shaped to highlight highlight an area of this subdiscipline of gen ed assessment. I don't know how to describe it. It's like someone who's trying to get sympathy from everyone else in the room by telling a sad tale that everyone's heard a million times before. And then I guess that's why it's compelling, because it's been told a million times before, so that gives the illusion of importance. Why students' voices matter. What I'd be more interested in, so this is talking about articles rather than learning from them. Building this foundation, Allison Cook-Souther argued that education research and reform efforts have historically marginalized student perspectives, contended that students possess important forms of knowledge generated from their lived experiences. In Consumers Education, she advocated recognizing them as valuable contributors. Her work introduces the concept of student voice. To be fair, I didn't read Cook-Souther any closer than that. So if you remember, I referenced Cook-Souther because they inspired the author that I found so compelling. So let's see what else. One of the first scholars to articulate a systematic framework for student-faculty partnerships, they argued that students possess valuable expertise. Faculty collaborators, co-creators. Their work highlights several benefits of partnership, increased student engagement. I'm recognizing this in a lot of essays I read over the summer, ostensibly written by students. And I'm going to have to do a more careful analysis of this writing style because, I don't know, it just rubs me the wrong way. Their work highlights several benefits of partnership, including increased student engagement, enhanced learning experiences, stronger relationships between student and faculty, greater institutional responsiveness. Those outcomes are vague. I can't imagine anything that a teacher might do that doesn't impact that. I mean, any high impact practice is going to impact that. So it's like, yeah, students can be involved in the assessment process, or they can be a dynamic learning experience. It's like it all is kind of directed at the same thing. Fill in the gap of what the learning experience is, and you're going to have the benefits of that be essentially the same. Okay, so as an educator, someone who's actually cares about this topic, and I hope that students are picking topics they care about, I want to know what those partnerships look like. How did they take place? What were some of the problems that emerged? How are those problems solved? It's just like, oh, yeah, they did that. It was good. Oh, and they did that, and it was good. It's like, no shit. How could I follow those steps? All I know is that, you just need to collaborate with students, and it'll be good. Their model emphasizes respect, reciprocity, and shared responsibility. Those couplets, those triplets, very common in AI writing. Students are viewed as active contributors. That was like a repeat from the Cook-Souther paragraph. It doesn't tell me at all what that looks like. I haven't learned anything about that. That's it. It's like these vague connections are made and vague descriptions. I haven't learned anything about how to involve students in this process. So backing up, I think that the CoPilot did an excellent job picking out resources for me, even though it couldn't help me find them. It did an excellent job helping me brainstorm. It did an excellent job outlining possible formats of the lit review I could write. It did a horrible job writing it for me. Keeping in mind that I'm a PhD holding author of many publications, and so perhaps my bar is a bit higher. But wouldn't you as a learner or as an instructor or professor, wouldn't you want to actually learn about the topic that you're writing? I guess when I write a lit review, it isn't about taking information out there and dumping it on the page. It's about informing my perspective. And so I want to be involved in this process. And so as I'm trying to involve myself, it's like, what did Carpenter, Burgess, and Thorsrud do? What did they learn about this engagement with students? What did their colleagues have to say? What problems did they not foresee that ended up becoming pretty significant problems? None of that's here. It's just like, oh yeah, people have done it. Okay, good. So I guess we should do it. How do we do it? Not sure. But students will take responsibility, I guess. Evidence for students as partner literature. Implications for gen ed assessment. Let's see if there's any practical suggestions. Partnership. Students would be uniquely well-suited. Outcomes. Student involvement can provide valuable insights. So all vague bullshit. Partnership approaches also address long-standing criticisms. Assessment culture. Okay, yeah, it'll be a contrarian perspective, but it doesn't tell me how to do it. Furthermore, student partnership support contemporary emphases on equity and inclusion. Okay, so we have more of a defense for why we might do it, but no actual discussion. This is like reminding me of a lot of stuff that my administrators send and like defense arguments they give about programming. Very disappointing. Now the whole lit review it gave me has read like a conclusion, very vague kind of connections that are made. So I expect this to be like a doubly vague. All right, let's go back to this rubric. Did a good job helping you brainstorm, collecting information, but not the actual resources. Creation of artifact. Well organized. Manuscript is well organized, balanced, and flows well, communicating clearly the goals of the review and the arguments that follow. False. All academic resources are seamlessly integrated in a manner that is fair to the reference authors. False. Students include statement on how, if at all. Okay, so I would have to write. AI wrote all of this. So where would this land? Manuscript is written and follows APA guidelines. Communicating clearly the goals of the review. It still wasn't, it didn't communicate clearly the ideas. Suffers from poor organization, balance, or flow. Resources are integrated. So all academic resources are integrated. Students include statement. Okay, so that's where it would be another 5. So assuming I explained that I wrote the entire thing using AI, I would have to go find the citations because they weren't included, do them in APA format, make some changes. If it was submitted just as is, it would have been this here. So there is something, but fails on every of the parameters for that row. So let's just say I submitted that. So that's 3.75. This was a 5.5, so that was 10. That's 13.75, and this one here was a 7.5. So 13 to 20. 20 out of a possible 30. So if a student did all 5 of them, that would be 100. They would pass the class using AI for most of it. There's clearly lots of room for improvement, but they would kind of know where they're cutting themselves short. And that whole thing took me 30 minutes, maybe 25 minutes, which really isn't bad. I haven't changed at all as a person. The brainstorm kind of pointed me in some neat directions. That was like a 5-minute. I'd say that was a worthwhile process. Everything else was kind of, I found really neat articles, but I couldn't get them. That was frustrating. Everything else was kind of disappointing. And I don't feel like my perspective has changed at all, and I don't have any ideas moving forward, so that's disappointing. when I do a literature review, I want to kind of be transformed by the process. I don't just write what I know. It's a dynamic process of like learning. I'm interacting with resources and thinking and clarifying my thought, and then other resources are helping me clarify my thought. And so when I'm done with it, like I've gained something. I've put the work in, and I've been transformed. I didn't get that, but again, maybe if I spent 2 hours interacting with AI, the same amount of time I spent reading the documents myself, perhaps I would have gotten something out of it. But as you can see, I just got frustrated by the vague AI speak.